Hello, everyone. My name is Michael Lopez, and this is my book report on The Graveyard Book by Neil Gaiman. So, this story follows a boy named Bod, and he grows up in a graveyard. So, as a baby, Bod's family was murdered by a man named Jack, who was part of this magical organization. But as Bod's family was being murdered, he was able to escape out of his crib and walk out the house to this graveyard where he meets Mr. and Mrs. Owens, who are ghosts of the graveyard. They realize he's being attacked, they don't know where his mother is, and so they decide to adopt him. And he grows up in this graveyard. So this story is in chapters and it shows the phases of him growing up. So each chapter he grows older, either a couple years, and just shows how he's grown. While he grows, he encounters different characters, such as his guardians, people such as Silas, who is a vampire who takes care of him. Also, another guardian is Miss Lupusek, which is like a temporary guardian. And these are vampires and werewolves and different ghouls. He also meets some human people, Scarlet, which was a human friend of him, and another important character is Mr. Frost, who is introduced later in the story as a friendly historian who helped out Scarlet. Um, but yeah, this book follows Bod's journey as he grows older. He begins to question more about his life and what happened to his parents, why he's different from the ghosts and everything, and he wants to find answers. So he becomes more adventurous. He goes out, and towards the end of the book, they find out that Mr. Frost is the killer of Bod's parents, and they try to kill Bod because of a prophecy that they've heard that would destroy his magical organization. But they end up entrapping Mr. Frost, and Bod makes it out okay. And as Bod grows older in the graveyard, he learns that he starts to lose his abilities. At a young age, he begins to know that he could walk through walls, he could see ghosts, and he could fade, like making himself invisible and almost persuade people. And he begins to lose these abilities at the end of the story, and he finds it hard to actually see the ghosts that he usually talks to. And so his guardian Silas explains that it is now time for him to go out into the world as an adult and helps him venture out. So although this is a chapter book, there are illustrations which I was surprised to see, and I really like them. So we have them right here. As you can see, these illustrations are very dark and they're abstract. Some of them take up the whole page, some of them not, but they are very eerie and kind of mysterious. Um, the color, the black and gray, reminds me of a water texture style, as you can see. And it adds to like the mystery and eerie atmosphere that this book has. Um, this book is centered around a graveyard, so there's different ghouls and spirits, ghosts, and all that. And so it helps with the spooky and horror aspect of the book. But also, I noticed for most of the characters, their faces aren't really distinguishable, as we could see here in the front. That also adds to the mystery because we don't really ever see a full character's appearance. Um, you could see here, it's just very abstract and adds to the mystery due to like its distortion and everything. But I do like the illustrations, although they're not clear, they are very detailed and help the reader visualize the setting along with the different horror aspect and mystery aspect of the book. So the genre of this book is fiction. I would consider it mystery and horror as well. Fiction is due to the ghost elements and the magic elements in it. So Bart could walk through walls and fade in and out. He could talk. He sees all these ghosts, such as vampires, werewolves, these different ghouls, and goes to almost like different dimensions. It seems like the mystery aspect comes from the killing. So as we know, Bod's family is murdered, and so we never know why they're murdered and who murders them, why Jack decides to murder them until the end of the story. So it leaves it leaves the reader in mystery, wondering what happened, and also the horror aspect due to the murders, the ghosts, and the spirits that we encounter in this book. It would be considered a horror book. One quote that I really enjoyed from this book comes from page 179. This is when Silas is talking to Bod, and they're talking about the man who killed his family. Silas tells him, "You're alive, Bod. That means you have infinite potential. You could do anything, make anything, dream anything. If you change the world will change. Potential. Once you're dead, it's gone. Over. You've made what you've made, dreamed your dream, written your name. You may be buried here, you may even walk, but that potential is finished." So I really like this quote. I feel like it's very powerful because Bod is growing up in this graveyard, and he's dealing with these ghosts and ghouls, and sometimes he doesn't realize that he's not one of them, and he has to distinguish between the two. And I feel that Sus does a good job explaining how, they're ghosts, they can't walk out of the graveyard, they can't make an impact in the world, but he can because he's still living, which maybe they long for or wish they could do now that they're stuck in their graveyard. But I felt like it was a very motivating quote, as you could do anything that you set your mind to and dream of, and you could you could like leave leave almost a mark in the world, I guess, and change it. So I really enjoyed this book, and I found many strengths. The first being the atmosphere and I guess the world, the setting that they created for this book. It was a unique graveyard, and it had ghosts, vampires, wolves, these supernatural beings, and it makes it very engaging. I personally really like horror stories, and I find them very engaging. So I appreciate all the vivid imagery through the text, and just the mysterious way things were, shaped to keep me intrigued throughout the story. So I felt that they did a good job with the atmosphere, the setting, and everything. I also really like the character development in this book. So, in the beginning of the story, we see that Bod is this little child, and each chapter he grows and grows. He becomes more brave. He becomes more adventurous. He wants to go outside of the graveyard, and he's becoming a young adult. And he it's just a lot of personal growth and self discovery through his relationships with the people he meets, as well as adventuring on his own outside the graveyard. So I feel like the atmosphere, along with watching Bod's character development in the story, was very interesting and definitely the strengths of this book. When discussing weaknesses, I personally wouldn't say there are weaknesses just because I really liked how everything was structured and how the atmosphere kept a mysterious and engaging storyline throughout the whole story. Maybe in the beginning it was a little slow due to just uh, Bod interacting with all of the characters of the graveyard, but some may say that it may be too graphic for sensitive readers. Right in the beginning, we see that Jack kills Bod's parents and his family, murders them with a knife. And so immediately the topic of death and violence is brought into the story, which can be disturbing for some readers, some sensitive readers. But other than this, I feel like the book was a very good read for these young adults, as they could put themselves in Bod's situation. So regarding the age range for this book, I would consider this middle school and up, just because of the topics of, I guess, death, but also mature topics of personal growth and character development. I feel like middle school and up would understand these concepts. And a classroom activity that I would like to do with my students is breaking down each chapter that we read, because these chapters are long and filled with many information. So I would like to do something such as a storyboard where the students write the title of the book, they write down the chapter that they're summarizing, and they would write down the characters in the chapter and the setting where it takes place. Because in some adventures, Bod goes out of the graveyard, he stays in the graveyard, he enters these almost different dimensions, but uh, they would mention the setting. Then I would like them to write down the problem, because during each chapter, there's either a problem or something that happens. Either he goes on an adventure, he's developing relationships with different characters. Um, Basically, the main idea of the chapter they would write down, and they would say how it was solved. And yeah, I would also want to hear what they liked about the chapter, what they didn't like, or make inferences about what they believe will happen in the next chapter. But yeah, I found this a very good read. It was very engaging, and I would definitely recommend to any reader for middle school and up. It was a great read.